Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I am your host, Lonnie Jones. My wife Jackie and I moved to the city of Huntsville in 1986 for me to be a youth and family minister. I have been a minister since 1980. I have served in this community as a police chaplain assigned to a SWAT team since 1992, and I've been in private practice as a licensed professional counselor since 1998. I'm also an adventure educator and an avid outdoorsman. I dabble in rock climbing and I goof around with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our life has been full of many wonderful experiences and some just outright adventures. I used to write about those things in a little church bulletin article. So now instead of asking you to read those things, we're just going to talk about them in our podcast. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the facts. The facts lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. One caveat about the facts is, for the most part, we're going to tell you the facts just as they happened. But every now and then, we're going to tell you the way other people have told us they remember it happening with a little bit of embellishment. It's all good, clean fun and for educational purposes. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy Keeping Up with Jones. Faulkner University announces a 60% tuition discount for members of the Church of Christ. Now, there are some guidelines. This 60% tuition reduction is applicable to adult undergraduate Bible degrees or graduate Bible degrees from the Curley Graduate School of Theology in the VP Black College of Biblical Studies. You must satisfy all admission requirements and maintain satisfactory academic progress. You must remain continuously enrolled, including summers, until the completion of the degree. You must provide a letter from an elder or minister, preferably on church letterhead, verifying that you're an active member of a Church of Christ congregation prior to your initial enrollment. This offer applies to adult undergraduate degrees such as biblical studies, youth and family ministry tracks, and it also includes graduate degrees. And those are the Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, the Master of Arts in Family Life Ministry, or a Master of Theology, and it also applies to the PhD in Biblical Studies. For undergraduate inquiries, please contact Adult Enrollment, 334-386-7140, 334-386-7140, or Adult Enrollment at Faulkner.edu. That is Adult Enrollment at Faulkner.edu. For graduate inquiries, please call 334-386-7539, 334-386-7539. Graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. That is graduate enrollment at Faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. The human error is the assumption of permanence. March the 10th will be my birthday. My birthday is the same as Chuck Norris. Coincidence? I think not. If I make it to March the 10th, and by the time this episode plays, March the 10th will be yesterday. But if I make it to March the 10th, I'll be 62. Now, why 62? Why is that a big deal? See, 40, 45, and 50 were not that big a deal. By the way, those are calibers as well as ages. 46 was sort of a big deal because I didn't think I was going to make it. I had my major health scare when I was 45. But this year, 62. Why 62? I was in the 9th grade. We lived in Mr. Whiteside's rental house off Coleman Road. There's a little white block house, and it's set on the top of a small rise at the end of a 41-yard-long gravel driveway. And often when we would get off the school bus, we would race up that hill toward the house. I remember being able to sprint that distance effortlessly. On this particular afternoon in 1978, I saw my dad standing at the door. And then because he was standing at the door, I ran faster. And all of this comes into you in a blur, but Dad's not usually home in the afternoons when we get off the school bus. His posture was odd. He was in the door frame with one arm over his head and his head resting on his arm. And I remember it was the first time I'd ever thought that he looked old. Like I said, he wasn't usually home when we got home, and today he was home. I rounded the corner from the gravel drive to our paved drive, and cut the corner not to go up the steepest part of the hill that we lived on, and stopped on the little concrete porch, and he told us that our grandfather had died. His exact words were, "Papa's gone." And it was the first time he ever looked old. My grandfather was 62 when he was killed. His sister had died that morning, and he and his brother were riding to the funeral home when an oncoming 18-wheeler had a blowout and created a head-on collision with the SS Nova that he drove. If he was 62 when I was 15, that means he was 47 when I was born. And he always looked old to me, but in truth, he was a relatively young man most of the years that I knew him. He wore his hair slicked back, and whatever he put on his hair made it look jet black. I don't really know if his hair was black or not. He had a ruddy complexion with deep weathered lines from the years of farming. I'm not sure if he could read. I remember being at the hardware store, and we were going to buy a permit to hunt the Kimberly-Clark Forest. And I was in the hardware store with him, and he made the exchange for the permit, and he made his mark. He didn't sign his signature. Years later, my cousin would find his wallet in the effect of his parents after his mom and dad had passed away, and he was cleaning out some of the things at their house, and he found Papa's wallet. And in his wallet, he would find his fishing license, his hunting license, and a pistol permit. And each of those documents had 3 different signatures. Someone had probably signed for him. His name was Buster Jones, with no middle name. But my grandmother called him Buck. I remember hearing a story growing up that when he was a young man, that he'd gone to visit a female Pentecostal preacher. She was holding a revival in the area of Lineville, Alabama, and she was preaching in a brush arbor. This wasn't a building meeting. It wasn't a tent meeting. It was a brush arbor. And to the best of my knowledge, a brush arbor is poles are erected, and then there are poles connecting the poles, and then there's a brush top and a sawdust floor. And so the young Buster Jones was in attendance. I'm not sure if he'd gone there because the local girls were there, or if he thought he might witness tongue speaking or some such charismatic manifestation. But they were standing in the audience, and they were singing, and as they sang, he did not. Either he was gifted with the Jones gift of song and knew better, or he couldn't read the words and he didn't know the words, and so he didn't sing. The lady pointed to him in the service and mouthed the word sing, and then he shook his head no, and she rolled up a paper hymnal and threw it at him during the service. Mysteriously, that night the brush arbor burned to the ground. Maybe I know why the young Beulah Mullally, being courted by a tall, lean, dark-haired young man who burned down a brush arbor, maybe I know why she would call him Buck instead of Buster. My relationship with my grandfather was just that. It was just, he was my grandfather. I don't remember ever having a deep and meaningful conversation with him. We never sat down and talked about religion or even politics. He never passed on any of the grandfatherly wisdom other than what he shared with me about hunting squirrels and catching bass and catching catfish. I do remember fishing with him one time, and we're sitting on the side of the catfish pond, and he leaned over and told me that if I would listen very carefully, that catfish always would bite right after a bullfrog croaked. And I would sit listening and waiting and watching my line, listening for that bullfrog to sing. I know now that it was his very wise and gentle way of telling a very young Lonnie Buster Jones to fish more and talk less. He was an incredible shot. He could drive a nail into a board with a .22 rifle, and he could strike a match and then shoot the flame out with that same rifle. I don't remember what distance he performed those tricks, but to a kid, it was all pretty impressive. I have many memories of just being in the woods and beside the water with him. I didn't realize how special it was. It was just normal. Boys roamed the heavily wooded forest of the timber company and fished with their granddad. I thought that's what all boys did. I thought all boys had a grandfather like mine, and I thought mine would live forever. I had this one moment with my grandfather that affected me deeply, more deeply than any other of the memories that I have of him. And I remember a lot of others, and there are many. I remember when he would give us that treasured first fixed blade knife, and I was either 8 or younger when I got that first little black handle serrated blade that he gave us when we turned 8 or maybe even younger. I know he gave us our first shotgun when we turned 8. And I remember waiting on that porch, that big wooden porch, and sitting in the swing, waiting for him to come home on those long summer evenings, because I knew that as soon as he got home from work, we'd go to Mr. Horn's Lake and fish, and we'd go even before he had a chance to eat supper. But this is the memory of all. It was the summer before he died. My brother and I had gone on a mission trip, and we'd stayed 2 weeks on the island of Tobago. Tobago is just about 20 to 30 miles off the northern coast of South America. We were there with a church group. Actually, the church had paid for my brother and I to go because they thought we were capable of and mature enough to be doing the work. And so we'd left Oxford, Alabama, and gone to a foreign country. But now we were back home. We'd gone on the trip, and we'd come back home, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and we were all in the little white block house on Coleman Road. My grandparents were visiting there for Sunday lunch, and I think it's the first Sunday we'd back in the States. As we sat down to eat, Papa said the blessing. And he thanked God for the food and for the weather, and then as he prayed, he thanked God for the safe return of his boys. And his voice broke. And there at the table over fried chicken, he cried. And he cried not because something bad had happened, but because something bad had not happened. And it struck me how much I really was loved. Knowing you are loved intellectually and experiencing it are an entirely different matter. I knew, but I didn't know. And at that moment, hearing that strong, gentle voice break and hearing those tears, I felt it. I heard it. I knew it. And I loved him not because of the things that I got from him, but from the time I spent with him. And the time I spent with him was because he loved me. And in that prayer and in that moment, that's when I knew I was loved. Not loved because I was fast or strong or could shoot or climb or wrestle or catch fish. I was just loved. Unconditionally. Just loved. I so wish he could have met Jackie or seen Lonnie Beth. And that's probably not right. I wish they could have been loved by him like I was. My relationship with my grandparents is probably not unique. It's just very ordinary. It's just what grandparents do. It was unconditional love. I didn't earn it. I didn't deserve it. It just was. But the profound realization and experience of being loved like that caused me to see my parents love differently. And it would eventually teach me to love differently. You see, we love because we are loved. We are all loved in a love that goes beyond what my grandfather had for me. We are loved, all of us. And it's without merit, without reason, and actually without rationale or even the ability to even reciprocate. We are loved, and that love comes from a Father who sent his Son to make sure we could all come home safe. And truly, that is God's desire for us, is to be with us and us with him. He loves us. He loved us before. He loves us now, and he will continue to love us. His only fear and his deepest hurt is that if somehow we are spiritually harmed and we can't return home safely. You see, there's nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you less. His love for us is a constant in the universe. And in much the same way that the Hebrew word for God, the four letters in Hebrew, the tetragrammaton, in the same way that the name for God means I am, if you could describe his love for us, it would be, it just is. His name means to be, to exist. And his love for us is just that. It just exists. It just is. It is the constant in the universe. You are loved. And it's not because of what you are, and it's not because of what you're not, but it's because of who he is. And that special kind of love makes him a grand Father. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use two large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.